theoretically it's live. Maybe, kinda. It says it is. Who knows if it actually is?
So, like
Buttons.
speaking of live and technology and all this crap, I was actually thinking about deleting my Facebook.
Sometimes I think that'd be a good idea for you to delete your Facebook.
Just okay, why do you think it's a good idea for me to delete my Facebook?
I would get in 80% less arguments with someone just trying to troll me.
Yeah, probably so.
At least 80% less arguments with someone just trying to troll me.
Well, it's not just you that I'm trying to troll. I was more thinking about deactivating it just so I could I don't know, have more spare time, I guess.
That's fair.
Because like
So
I
like
spend a lot of time.
here's here's a little bit of example for those of you who don't follow Travis on Facebook. And I'm not sure if everyone, like, are you open or closed, or I don't know what
Hold on.
Travis's settings are,
Oh,
but I can follow Travis on Facebook. So something that he has shared is this attention video with the mayor of New Orleans explaining why he took down the Robert E. Lee statues, which I feel is completely fair and legit, and it's as good a reason as any to take something down, right? But at this exact same time, I'm like, but didn't Robert E. Lee like fight for the Union like in 3 wars and like was a war hero? But because he stuck up for this, like he was in the wrong here, we're tearing him down. Like, isn't it a little bit of have sex with a sheep one time, you're a sheep fucker for life,
there's the F
right?
bomb.
There's the F bomb. But I don't know. And I'm like trying to figure out if I want to say that on Facebook, but I know where this argument's going to go. So I'm just like, I'm not going to say anything.
Right. Like, the majority of the things that I post them because I find them funny,
Sure.
or
And I
I post them
recognize that with you.
I know it's going to start an argument. And as much as I like doing that, it's also really time consuming. Like, I woke up at 7 o'clock this morning and I didn't get out of bed till 9 o'clock because I was just on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, and I'm just like, holy crap, I'm just like threw away 2 hours of my day not doing anything.
Right. Well,
But at the same time, it's like if I deactivate my Facebook, is that going to shut off my Messenger? Which is, where
I
I
mean,
contact most people.
I don't know actually. I for somebody whose job it is to like do stuff on Facebook, I don't actually know that much about Facebook. I just kind of know how to do the things that I do and interact with things. But I would assume there's some way that you can stop like being motivated to spend this time on Facebook and more motivated to do other more useful things on your Facebook.
Yeah, I'm not going to be motivated to do useful things on my Facebook.
Well, not just necessarily Facebook, but in general. Like you could go to Tiny House. You can start liking Tiny House pages, Tiny House things, or bus conversion places, or uh, going solar, or growing your own food, or like finding edible plants, or like basic trapping skills, or like there's a lot of education that can be had on Facebook. It's not all arguments. It's just as humans, we tend to fall to our baser conversations. So it's kind of like, oh, you know, you have like 3 groups, I think, of Facebook. It's like, God bless you. I hope you get better. Right? There's like that group. Then there's like people who are posting political shit and getting in arguments because that's like become the place where you have those kind of discourses. because heaven forbid we actually talk to each other in person. And then you have like the other third who are legitimately trying to use it to do something constructive, usually for businesses. They're like, look at my business, or I'm interested in this. And I don't know. I think that because there are two other thirds competing with whatever third you're trying to do, it's like peeing uphill or into the wind or whatever the saying is about peeing on yourself because you're pointing the wrong direction. Am I wrong? Am I incorrect?
No, well, I mean, all three of those, and I have friends who post about all of them, but why should I be on there?
I think, again, if you were to refocus your efforts to the third group of specifically trying to better yourself and spend more time bettering yourself and less time getting pleasure from doing that thing that you do to people.
But if I'm trying to better myself, I'm not going to be online doing that.
Oh, maybe there's a lot of good resources on Facebook. Like I'm part of several aquaponics pages where I've learned lots of new techniques. Would have in a million years discovered the Valtori valve to oxygenate the water without using an air compressor, right? Like that's never something that would have come to me. But because I was in this aquaponics Facebook group, like they demonstrated using this downward suction of the water running back into your tank and having an outside air hose and kind of like a ratio of sizes to get that the water oxygenated so I don't have to run an air pump into my tank. Like there are ways that Facebook can be a useful tool and not just have an argument. Again, just we happen to do that. I think you could if you wanted to.
Yeah.
The question is, can you, Travis, the troll, motivate yourself to be less trolly on Facebook?
No, I can't.
Well, then that sounds like a you problem.
Because I've tried it before and it doesn't work. Because it's just so easy to trigger people.
Like, does this a lot. You know, we've discussed Dan on the show several times, but he'll take breaks from his social media accounts for like 3 months, 6 months, whatever. And then he comes back and then it's like a slow grind until he hates life again and Facebook. And then he takes another break.
Right.
And maybe you're just that guy. Or maybe you're currently that guy. And you just need to take like a 2-week break or whatever.
I could see that.
Because I tell you, sometimes I think you intentionally, like you post something, and I just make an offhand comment, specifically because I'm one of those guys that like, I see something so many times and I'm like, no, this is where I'm going to say, because I'll feel protected. Like I can say anything on your page because I know, one, I'm not going to offend you.
Right.
And two, like we could legitimately have a conversation about something, even if we have differing opinions on it. It's one of those places where I feel safe to share my thoughts and opinions. 80% of the stuff I see on Facebook that irritates me, I just ignore. Right? So there's a small group of people that I'm actually willing to engage with in there because a lot of my friends don't see the world the same way I do. And I just want to be like, well, here's a counter to this philosophy that you guys are all sharing like crazy or whatever. So like today we had a discussion on firearm control. And God, we're so far not close to magic. But I'm trying to explain like the meaning behind the Second Amendment. And you're like, that's dumb. I'm just like, all right, well, I know you're trying to I almost messaged you about trolling me, but I thought, well, you know what? Let's just go down this rabbit hole for a minute. And eventually you said something that was so stupid. I'm just like, you're being dumb now.
Yep.
And I'm like, and it was just a matter of, you're like, prove it. I'm like, you prove it. You made the first stupid comment. Like, you prove it first.
Well, then my response was, nobody's ever been shot or stabbed when I'm unarmed.
That's right. Well, they should have armed themselves, huh?
Right, exactly. Then only I would have been shot and or stabbed.
It's probably true. That's probably true. But anyway, this is ironically not a podcast about Facebook and hurting your friends with their words. This is, in fact, a podcast theoretically about Magic the Gathering.
Although it is fun.
It is a lot of fun. Two Trolls in a Brew episode. Did you update the episode number?
Yes.
84. The Great Flood of 2017. Dun, da, da, da. Subtitled Worthy Champ. Worthy Champ. Did you do well at game day?
No.
No? Then what's that the subtitle for?
You put it there.
I put it there. What do you mean? What?
Oh, you got the awful playmat?
I'm a worthy champion. I like this one a lot because it says worthy champion on it. And I like this artwork. It's not as good as like Liliana showing off her chest melons or whatever you want to call it. But I think this guy's pretty good. It's like, you know what? I know that you're going to come at me for all the things that I say on Facebook, but it's cool. I'm glad I said it. So there we go. I finally got to win one in 100% clear conscience.
I have this one. The artwork on it is way better. The Cons of Tarkir one.
Hey, grazie. Yeah, I have one from that has the Ghost Dragon on it.
Eugene?
Yeah, I have that one. So in that one, Remington and I were in the finals together, but he didn't want to stop playing his Commander game to play in the finals with me.
Yep.
So he's like, let's just draw. So I'm like, okay, whatever. And then, so we just draw, and I won on tiebreakers. But then we came home and played, and he like whooped my ass in 5 games. Like every game. He just destroyed me, like 5 in a row. And I'm like, well, gee, golly, I guess this is really your play, Matt. And you know what I mean? So, in this one I won. I went 4-0 with a sweet deck that we'll talk about later. And I think I tried to learn some important lessons. I don't know. But let's start where we start in this particular show with troll cards. Travis?
I chose. Wow.
Chose it.
Off to a great start with Grant.
Have chosen the things.
I am do choose mechanized production.
See, maybe you did have it listed before and I deleted it because you've done
you definitely deleted it
before. You've done this so many times. This is worse than me picking the enchantment that makes a clue.
Which one?
Trial of Evidence.
Okay, but so here's the thing, though. I don't play with a wide selection of cards in Standard because it's not really a format that I enjoy all that much. And then our Commander scene isn't very big. Our Legacy scene is pretty much 5 people. And then our Modern scene is faulty. So it's like, I'm trying to play Standard with a limited number of cards that I like. And it's just not like, I don't know, I'm not going to have the biggest variety. So yeah, I'm going to choose a lot of cards repetitively.
Right. Well, I think that's fair. I think those biases are important to realize that you have. And again, I think we'll talk about that a little bit later on. I just was pointing out the fact that I think you've done this card a lot. So it's easy for me to have screwed up and deleted it again this week.
Yeah, it's possible. Like I randomly decided to put it into the Colossus deck as like a secondary win condition.
Okay.
And it happened to work one game because my opponent chose Dispossess, obviously targeting the Colossus. So I was like, oh, okay, I guess turn 4 I'll just play mechanized production on my uh the woodworkers puzzle knot, the green one.
Right.
And he just looks at it, he's like, "What?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, by the way, now you have 6 turns or less to kill me." Next turn I drew another mechanized production, put it on a different puzzle knot, and he was just like, "Yeah, I can't win this race." And I'm like, "Well, especially without any creatures. Sweltering suns kill everything." And he's like, "Yeah, let's just go ahead and go to game 3."
Yeah, I think
Uh,
I would like to see more decks try to take advantage of this mechanized production. Like, I'm not sure exactly where it's best in, but if there was some sort of hex-proof artifact that you could put this on, that would be the bee's knees.
oh, that'd be amazing. What? I don't think there is a hexproof in standard right now. Not artifact, anyways.
Not an artifact, but isn't the blue legend guy like say all your artifacts are hexproof?
Have hexproof, yeah.
So like you could just play that guy, I guess.
Yeah, but then if they have the enchant, like if they have the cast out, then they just target the
The enchantment.
yeah. So it's
I
essentially
don't know.
like at that point, why not just put in negate?
Sure. Also, is there a good window to like do? I feel like I just saw something like this on Goldfish. Um, in the Goldfish website, I think is down. It is down.
Yay!
No, this is worse than the Gatherer being down. Damn it. I think there's like a blue white Sigarda's A deck that uses mechanized production as its win con. And it's
Really?
possible that that's a good deck right now. Well, I don't know how. I think it's in the budget list, and I'm not sure how good it is. But
That'd be funny.
it seems okay. So my troll card this week is From Beyond. And for those of you who don't remember, it's a green and 3 generic for an enchantment that says on your upkeep, make a 1/1 Scion, which of course you can sacrifice to make a butthole mana. Or you can spend a green and a colorless, and you can tutor your deck and sacrifice it, and you can tutor your deck for an Eldrazi card. So essentially, it's got a couple of modes to it. Mode 1, make some Eldrazi's. Mode 2, spend 5 mana, go find an Eldrazi. Needless to say, I used this card to great effect in my deck that I used to win my game day. Not that it was the biggest or necessarily the most challenging game day ever, but I think we had 4 rounds. Yes, 4 rounds. And we did not do like a cut to the top 4. But it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Still good times. And most importantly, I went undefeated. I thought Remington was going to crush me. Like we met in round 3. And he just like game 1, he just like completely romper stomped me. I'm like, oh, this is bad. Because he was playing black zombies.
Yeah.
And he just like, bleh. And I'm like, oh. Put it in like every single removal spell I had in my sideboard. And I was able to kill him. Another card that almost made this list that I did play more of than the deck designer designed was Burn from Within. I think that card's very good right now. I just want to give it a quick honorable mention because it removes invulnerability from creatures. If you like, I feel like I'm gonna have to look up the whole wording.
Is that the one where it makes 2 creatures fight each other?
No, Burn from Within it's a burn spell, a red and X for a sorcery. It deals damage to target creature or player. If a creature is dealt damage in this way, it loses indestructible until end of turn. If that creature would die this turn, exile it instead. So it can kill gods, and it can exile things that are troublesome. It's really important because one of the decks that I was struggling with was the Jund God deck, essentially.
Okay.
It's like green red monsters splashing black for a couple removal spells. And the fact that those gods are indestructible is very challenging to deal with. So, Burn from Within is great.
Fun fact. And we figured this out on F&M. Kalidas shuts down Bantu.
Does it say sacrifice or goes to the graveyard?
It says, okay, so Bantu, he can like only attack if a creature died this turn. Like if a creature you control died this turn.
Okay.
Kalita says if a creature dies, instead exile it. So even if you sacrifice a creature, it doesn't die, it goes to exile.
I would have to double check exactly. Because just because a creature is exiled doesn't mean that it died. But just because something died doesn't and it doesn't go to the graveyard. I'm not sure exactly how that is. But it's possible.
Yeah,
this is where I'm like working on studying for my judge test, my level 2.
Yeah. Well, see,
and this is just one of those interactions.
Yeah, that's like when we were there, you know, we were playing, and we have a level 1 judge there, and a level 2 was there, and the level 2 was playing, but then the level 1 was sitting there, and he was just like, he was at the table where they're having the game going on, and then he looks at, he's like, I think it works like this, and then they're like, well, can we call Justin over? And they're like, yeah, call him over. We wanted to make sure that they got the right ruling and everything. So like he gets called over, and then probably like 20 or 30 seconds later, he just like starts laughing. He's like, wow, Kalidas is busted. And then he's like, yeah, it overrules it. At least that's the ruling that he gave. So
yeah, and that it could be totally right. Like I said, it's one of those things where it's a concept where it makes me wonder. Again, because there's a difference between something dying and going to the graveyard.
right.
Like clearly, if Bantu says goes to the graveyard, that would be an easy thing, right? But also, like because it specifies creature card versus non-token, so like a token could go to the could be killed and go to the graveyard, and Bantu would be fine. So with no questions asked, because Kalidas doesn't care about tokens. But the fact that it is a card that gets exiled as a replacement effect, does it still mean it wasn't died? Did the creature not die and it was only exiled?
Right.
Or because it died and would have gone to the graveyard, it was exiled instead, does it mean that it was not dead? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would never argue with the judge remotely, but I would probably tend to disagree. So here's one that came up for me, and I'm still not sure that I have correct. Shram's Expertise, right? Make 3/1/1 dudes, cast a spell with converted mana cost 3 or less from your hand. So person A casts Shram's Expertise, makes 3 tokens, and plays the 1/3 from the new set that says when a creature token comes into play, gain a life. And he's like, well, how does this resolve? And I'm like, well, as this spell resolves, it's going to resolve all at once, but it's going to resolve in order of the spell being written on the card. So I went, the 3 tokens will come into play, and then you will put your your creature into play. But the tokens will already have been in play. And then I walked away, and I'm like, well, but the whole the whole spell resolves at once. Does it work? Does it not work? And I'm just like, these are places where my rule, like, there's a lot of places where my rules are not good enough, but this is just another one of those examples where I'm like, well, the way the timing rules work, would it see it? Does it not? I mean, I don't know yet. I haven't. I've been meaning to research it, but I've had such a busy week on the stream this week that I really haven't had a lot of extra spare time to look into it. So if anyone knows the answer to either of those questions, for sure, shoot us an email to the number 2 trolls brew@gmail.com. So our first talking point this week, after troll cards, obviously, I have a note here about draft. Mono gold cards, not as good as it's cool. So spoiler alert, I went 2-2 at this week's draft.
Okay.
Basically taking every gold card.
Okay.
In Bant. And it was one of those times where it seemed like if I could have cast my spells, I would have won every single game.
Right.
Like I had every spell to answer every situation, but I couldn't cast them all. There wasn't a ton of fixing available at the table. I took basically all of it I could find. I never saw an Evolving Wilds. I never saw... I saw 2 of the enchantment that lets you the land tap for any color. And I took one of those, and I thought the other one would table because it was like early, but it didn't table. So I think I took like... It was pick 2 maybe in the pack, and it didn't come back around. So I don't know. I had like 2 rogue refiners. I had the guy who comes into play if you had a revolt trigger, you regrow something out of your graveyard. I had the 3/2 flyer that like tapped a guy down and they couldn't untap. I had a bunch of cool bounce effects. I had a bunch of like all these things, but almost it seemed like probably half at least of my spells were 2 colors. And I couldn't always cast my spells. I'm like, oh wow, this is why you don't go 3 colors equally in draft. And it felt bad. It felt bad all day. Have you had drafts like that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have, but that's because when I draft, much like everything else, I don't do it seriously.
Sure.
And one of the reasons that I do that is just so everyone else has a chance.
Okay. Because you're the greatest there ever was.
Right. Well,
you're the Yu-Gi-Oh! Of Magic.
Yeah, pretty much. No, it's more like I see cards and I'm like, yeah, no, this will be really great. But you know what would be funnier?
Right.
If I have 6 Colossipedes.
So at the arena, I'm gonna throw like 18 so's in right here. At the arena, we tend to do like a couple of the new set, and then we'll do like a throwback, and then we'll do several of the new set, and then we'll do a throwback again. And we just happen to be, however many weeks it's been of Amonkhet. So now we did a Kaladesh draft, and I felt like, oh well, I'll just do whatever, and bit me in the ass hard.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes you do that. Sometimes you're like, well, I'm going to draft this deck because I haven't seen it done yet, or I haven't done it or whatever. And it turns out that like a lot of the reason you don't see those decks,
it's because they're bad.
Because they're bad, and you should feel bad, and you should have already learned this lesson. I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. I'm sorry. Now, on the flip side, I think if I would have had one, if I would have got that second enchantment, or heaven forbid, there been a prismatic lens. Is that what it's called? You draw a card and you filter mana?
Prism.
Prism, thank you. Had there been one of those, or the second enchantment, or like even one evolving wild, it would have been a completely different story. But I think I was like evenly split 18 lands at like a third, a third, a third.
Yeah.
And also, sometimes you just draw all your, like your keep is reasonable, right? Like all blue and white cards, and then you proceed to draw every single green card in your deck and not a forest. It's like, oh, okay, well, guess I just won't do anything. So this kind of brings me to my second point. First of all, before I get off the draft, how did your draft go, or your limited, or your Magic this week?
I didn't do draft on Monday because back pain.
No, not the Great Flood.
Oh no, the Great Flood was from game day. That was awful. So, okay, so I went 2-2 on game day. The 2 games that I won obviously was because I didn't get flooded. The two rounds that I lost, huh?
Ironically.
Yeah.
Wait, okay,
Well,
so when you say the Great Flood, do you mean actually the Great Floods that were happening all over the place? Or do you mean the fact that you just flooded out at drawing lands?
wait, there was floods happening?
Oh, okay. Yes, there were floods happening all over the place.
Oh. Yeah, well, see, there you go. No. I was flooded in Magic. I hope that answered your question.
Fucking Colorado got like 22 inches of snow and flooded at the same time. And you're like, there was weather. It's rained nonstop here in Kansas for like 5 days. You're like, huh? What? It's wet?
Here, look outside. You
Yeah.
see that? Oh,
Yeah.
perfect weather.
I'm pretty sure it's still overcast and nasty outside.
Oh man, no, like, okay, so we had a storm the other day. It lasted all of an hour and a half. It was great. But no, I was flooding. So the 2 games that I or the 2 rounds that I won.
Were they at least islands? Did you at least draw too many islands?
There's not a single island in my deck.
Damn it!
And I even looked at one of the dudes I was playing against. I was like, well, this is ironic. He goes, what? And I'm like, I'm so flooded, but I have no islands. And he goes, I hate you so much. I was like, well, you're the one that's going to win this round, not me.
Oh, man. You should have been like, if I could just top deck a Flood Waters, I'd be back in this game.
Yeah, exactly. No, but so I was one of the games that I was playing against, and the zombie decks, I have an incredibly good matchup against the zombie decks. Simply because I have the Battle at the Bridge and the Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot. So it just like negates all of the tiny damage that they do. And then I have board wipes. So it's like they're pinging me, and then I just gain a ton of life, and then I just kill all their creatures. So the one of the games against the black-white zombies, I saw 21 of my 24 lands, and I still almost beat him.
Wow, that's a reasonable amount of lands. If you would have had a burn within, you would have won.
Why?
What's the fireball we just talked about? You could burn the player for X. If you would have had 21 lands, you could have burnt them out.
Oh, see, I'm just saying,
throwback.
Like, yeah. Well, I'm just saying that I saw them, but like, I was just going through the entire deck with the Gaia Reach Sanitarium, and it was just like, draw nothing, draw nothing, draw. Okay, cool. And then it's like, oh, I'll play this Combustible Gearhulk. Oh, I can. You're gonna choose to mill since you're at 27. All right. Bop, bop, bop. Okay, there goes 3 more lands. Awesome. At least those are out of the way. But yeah, no, it was really, really frustrating that the one game where I know I have my best matchup, I lost because I saw 90% of the lands in my deck.
So after you lost because of things outside of your control, did you flip the table?
No,
Did you shoot somebody?
no.
Did I don't understand.
Well, see, there's this thing in Magic that people get really salty over, and it's called variance.
Exactly.
You
Um,
cannot stop variance from hurting you, and a lot of times it is difficult to prevent your opponent's variance from being better than yours.
and it's the thing that makes you go, man, if only I had X.
Right.
And it sucks. Like, again, going back to the draft, I felt like, oh man, if only I could have cast my spells, there's no way I could have won. Or
Yeah.
if I could have cast my stuff on curve, like there's no, sorry, no way I could have lost. It definitely sucks to lose Magic that way. But it's important to try to be a good sport at all times. It's not always easy. Um, Sometimes after a vicious loss and you didn't even feel like you got to play, it's like, man, I wish I could have gotten to play Magic that game. I've been there.
Yeah.
You got to congratulate them and go on. I watch these Pro Tour matches sometimes, and I watch these guys, and they're just so stone faced the entire time, and then like one guy will win and get up and walk away from the table, and the other guy will just like you could see he releases. You can see that he's physically pissed off and upset, rightfully so, but there's no outward expression to that disappointment to his opponent.
Right.
Instead, let his opponent enjoy the victory or her victory or whatever. I think that's an important lesson. I've kind of been on a reasonably hot streak lately, personally, and then this draft on Friday, it really like, oh, the last time I drafted this deck, I was insane and no one could touch me. But like, I didn't get the couple of payoff cards I needed, like I did the previous time I drafted a crazy deck like this, and I was nowhere near in it.
Right.
And it's like I couldn't see the forest for the trees, literally, because I couldn't draw a forest. But like, it's hard to not be salty at that. Variance is a thing. It's the monster that'll kill you.
Yep. However, my sealed games are amazing.
Your sealed games.
Yeah, we do a sealed league.
Oh yeah, you got your mini sealed going on.
Well, it's not a mini sealed, it's just a sealed.
Just a straight up sealed. Okay.
Yeah, like okay, so it's 4 weeks long.
Mhm.
And so week 1, you get your 6 packs. Then week 2, 3, and 4, you can buy an additional pack to throw into the deck.
Sure.
And then every 3 losses, you can buy another pack, just to maybe swing things more in your favor. So weeks 1, 2, and 3, I was just black white zombie deck. It's like a zombie deck slash discard deck that I have going on, and I was playing that for 3 weeks, and then finally I lost my third round in week 4, or at the end of week 3. So going into week 4, I bought 2 packs, and then I was just like, yeah, okay, I'm kind of bored of this zombie list. I'm gonna see what else I can do, and I ended up using now I'm Sultai because I have the Bounty of Luxa, the Vizier of Many Faces, the art or the Demon of Ifnir, the one where you cycle, you put a counter on neg one counter on their team. Haptera, the black green legendary thing,
Mhm.
and the Sandworm Convergence.
I like that card a lot.
Yeah, so it's just like Okay, I guess I'll use my gift of paradise and two spring mines to go ahead and ramp. Oh, turn six. Here's the 8-drop enchantment. Good luck attacking me.
Um, Real quick, as a special note on the Sandward Convergence, I actually had it for a little while in my Marvel deck,
Yeah,
specifically because I think Glory Bringers are going to be so popular in our area that having that ability to just like slam down, you know, air creatures can go suck a dick
right.
and make an army of ground beaters, and it feels good. It feels good. I'm not playing Marvel. I need one more Marvel. You can bring me a Marvel when you come down to visit next week.
All right.
But it's
There's three at that one of the shops here.
oh, you don't need to buy anything.
It's
I just
four
assumed you
dollars.
had them. Oh, they're $4. That's fine. Bring me a Marvel. Then.
Yeah, because it's like they
Like we
didn't
can't even find any here. So
they updated or they didn't update the price on two of them. So they have one of them marked at 7 and then two of them marked at 4. So I was like, fuck, I might as well just buy these.
sweet. But yeah, I don't know. I
Speaking of so speaking of cards that we can't find in local areas, do you have 4 Demigod of Revenge?
that's the red one, right? Red white hybrid one.
No, red black. So it costs 5 hybrid red black. It's a 5/4 flying haste, and
Yeah.
whenever you cast it,
Is it not
you
white red?
no, it's black red. And when you
Okay.
cast it, you get all of them from the graveyard into play.
Yeah. Maybe. I think they're still in a standard deck from that time that Remington was playing.
Yeah, yeah, take it apart. I want them
I,
uh,
I gotta
because
find them.
because I decided that I'm playing Mono Black Devotion in Modern because I miss pack rats.
I like pack rats too. I think that's a good card. But yeah, I'll see if we can't dig him up. I may not have a full playset. I think it was the top of his curved creature at the time, so we'll take a look and see if we can find him. I also have that like mirror thingamabob and some other thing that you're interested in.
Yeah,
I'm like, Joe, the next time you decide to send something to Travis, let me know. And he's never said anything. So
yeah, he's reliable sometimes.
yeah, that's what I heard. So let's get into this sweet list that I used on game day here. And this isn't going to work the place that I want it to work at. All right, we'll just share it like this then. Share my whole screen. My whole screen with you people. Boop. There we go. Let's move this out of the way.
He's sharing his whole.
My whole. So this list is from one of my favorite deck builders around, Conley Woods. And I'm sure I'm not going to give it any more like popularity than he is. So I don't feel too bad sharing his deck. And this is literally me. I grabbed a screenshot off of his stream to make sure that I grabbed a copy of it. I think he wrote an article about it on Stars Giddy Games. And if you have access to the premium Star City side, I'd recommend checking it out. I think I know a guy who sent it to me, and I got to read it. So I kind of had a vague idea, but I had watched him play like maybe half a dozen to a dozen matches or whatever over on his Twitch stream. So basically, the deck is a small handful of removal spells: Magma Spray, Harness Lightning, Sweltering Sun, a 4-mana Chandra. I'm going to call Arlen Cord a removal spell, but it's also obviously not. Glory Bringers, I'm going to put in the removal spell category for a minute, and Chandra Flamecaller, all good removal spells. Sometimes Warping Well is a good removal spell that's also in this deck. And it has 6 creature finishers. The 3 Glory Bringers, the 3 Reality Smashers. There's a few other finishers. Again, the Chandra can sometimes be considered Either of the Chandras can sometimes be a finisher. An Arlen Cord can be a finisher. This deck also runs Nissa, Voice of Zendikar, can also close out some games. But the real secret to this deck is mana acceleration and mana fixing. So Attune with Ethers and Traverse the Uvenwald, a package of 2 and 2, which feels awkward sometimes, but oftentimes is exactly what you want, 2 and 2. 3, Rune in the Wakes. So basically turn 1, you go get your Waste and put it in your hand. Turn 2, you play your Waste, play Rune in the Wake, and accelerate to 3.
Okay.
You can also cast Warping Well at the end of their turn, like leave up Warping Well to counter a sorcerer if you need to, or deal with the troublesome X1 or 1X or whatever. Like for example, the zombie guy who like makes zombies and like taps 3 zombies to draw a card. That guy's really good, and a card like Warping Well does a good job of killing it. Or like I said, you can accelerate to 4 mana. So on turn 2, you Warping Well at the end of their turn, play a land, you jump to 4. Call the Scions, similar effect. It basically jumps you from 3 to 6 sometimes, or 3 to 5, depending on the situation. So this deck runs 3 of those. 4 From Beyonds. Again, they are like token generating, mana accelerator kind of dudes. So that lets you cast all the spells in your decks, including a card that I have been trying to use for a while. I cannot remember what. Something creativity. something creativity. It's hard to read. And as we zoom in, I can't remember, and it's too blurry for me to read. But basically, it's the X Pyroclasm in red right now. So generally, what you try to do is some sort of token generation and or acceleration. Accelerate on turn 2, some sort of token generation on turn 3, again on turn 4, and then if everything works out, you can creativity on turn. Let's see, 3, 4. On turn 5, you creativity for 3.
Okay.
And that means you start flipping over the top of your deck until you run into some combination of Glorybringers and Reality Smashers and attack them from as little as 12, but as much as 15 on turn.
Okay.
On turn whatever. And often you'll get like, say, one of each and then one other one. So then like your Glorybringer can come down, eat a blocker, and then your Reality Smashers are just a super hard to deal with threat that you can easily cast, you know. I don't know. Overall, I really thought this deck was a lot of fun, and it was very good. I feel like there's something off about the deck. I'm not sure exactly what it is. Maybe it's just the sheer numbers of odd amounts. Like the only 4 of in the deck that's not a basic land or a land in general is Nissa, Voice of Zendikar. Everything else is like a 1 of, a 2 of, or a 3 of.
Right.
Which feels very odd to me in general. But I don't know. We'll have to see. It also runs a couple of Westfell Abbeys. So again, all these token generation things turn into weirdness. Transverse the Uvenwald easily turns on. It's easy to get Delirium. You're running so many Planeswalkers, so many sorceries, a reasonable mix of instants. Obviously, the hardest thing to actually put in your graveyard is a creature, which seems weird. But because you're only running 6 creatures, but land, sorcery, Planeswalker, and instant, those are all relatively easy to get in your deck. So with a Transverse, you can go get like a Westfall Abbey, which can essentially make you a massive dude. You can get a Sheltered Thicket to draw a card. Like there's a lot of plays in this besides just go get a creature. Just to go get any land things got some options. sideboard is where I've been kind of experimenting with. This is Conley's. At the time that I took the screenshot, the main deck hasn't changed that much, but the sideboard's been all over the place. I played, I think, 3 magma sprays in the board, 2 appetites for the unnatural. I played, I think, 1 sweltering sun in the board. The full play set of both Glorybringer and Reality Smasher in the sideboard, and then 2 Burn Within and a Nissa for sure. 5-mana Nissa. And basically, the only things I ever brought in were more removal spells. I never brought in anything else. Like I went up to the full play set of Magma Sprays and Burn Withins and Sweltering Suns against zombies, and took out things like Call the Scions and 4-mana Chandra and Arlen Chords and stuff like that. Those came out, and just removal spells came in. Able to just occasionally Reality Smash for 2. 2 dudes Reality Smash for 10.
Right.
So overall, I think it's really good. I'm going to continue to fiddle with it. But there's a moment that, we kind of inferred that we were going to talk about earlier, where how Travis continues to play the similar cards and they end up as the troll cards of the week. Well, I play a couple of... I tend to favor a certain kind of deck. I think we all have these user preferences. So I didn't share with anyone that I was going to play this deck. I don't even think I messaged you, did I?
No.
Yeah, I didn't. I literally, the only person I talked to about was Remington about this deck until after the tournament, I think. But I'm about 60% positive that's true, which for me is pretty high odds. And I got thought seized on turn 2, game 1 in the finals. And I'm like...
That sounds illegal.
No, not thought seized. Whatever, transgress the mind. Look at your hand, take something important. Whatever,
Yeah.
Who cares? So at the time, my hand, I think, was Warping Whale, Nissa, Arlen Chord, Call of the Scions, and like a land or something. And my opponent was like, wow, I wouldn't expect you to be on this kind of deck. And I just like made a bunch of tokens and Nissa'd a few times and killed my opponent. Right. And then my opponent and I started sideboarding, and I added more creatures because all I saw him cast was the one transverse basic, or transgress basically. 1 or 2 other cards, but nothing crazy. So I was like taking out Chandras and whatnot and just speeding my deck up, right? But I left in the creativities, and I basically like token dude, made a couple of things, and I creativity'd for 3.
Yeah.
Or something. And then I like made a bunch of Reality Smashers and put a bunch of 1/1 counters on all my dudes and attacked.
Okay.
And somehow I lost that game. I don't remember how, because we ended up going to game 3. But there was a moment where it just like whoosh and rickrolled my opponent for like 18 points of damage. And it was like, oh, that's what your deck did. That's not what I expected it to do at all. So
just kind of blew up.
Well, you get a lot of when people people are used to me, and I've been talking about it for 3 weeks, like with the banning of Saheeli combo. I'm basically on this. I'm just going to play islands, and I'm just going to return your creatures to your hand until you eventually want to kill yourself.
Right.
Counter that, kill that. I'm going to draw a bunch of cards. Kill that, you know what I mean? Like, I've been talking about how that's where I'm at right now in Standard, and that's what I played at the previous 4 cash tournament that we had at the arena and blah, blah, blah. And when I sat down with this aggressive deck, my opponent was just like, that's not you. You don't play aggressive decks. And I'm like, well, it wasn't that long ago that I played like a red-black Sly deck. So I mean, you gotta be aware of your weaknesses, your tendencies, your uh,
Everything.
blind spots, I guess would be the way to put it,
Yeah.
and be willing to open yourself up. I was watching a political interview. Remember who exactly it was? Some Hollywood guy, and basically he's like, the reason I
Some
come and I
Hollywood guy.
some Hollywood guy, Mark something, I think, I don't know. And basically he was on this show that I like to watch, and he's like, the reason I come on this show is so I can listen and see if there are blind spots that I have. And he's like, and I came on your show however long ago, and you really opened up my eyes to some of my blind spots. And it didn't mean that I changed my mind or I started to disagree, but it did show me that there are places that I should reconsider. And I think that's awesome. And I think that's an important lesson to learn about Magic as well, because again, you get stuck in these groups. Like, oh, standard's expensive, or oh, it rotates all the time. I'm just gonna get in this core, you know. Um, or oh, I'm just gonna dirtle, or oh, I'm just gonna play control decks or whatever. And sometimes it's not the best strategy, especially like for small local tournaments. Sometimes that the same reason that we build troll decks around troll cards to get that extra value from people not expecting it. Sometimes the
Right.
fact that they are used to you playing a certain kind of deck can also be the same value.
Yeah, it can be their downfall is expecting you to do something.
Right. And like for example, I was talking to a guy at the draft, right? A new guy showed up to the draft this week. And I'm like, "Yeah, well, we've got a pretty ingrained table. Like this guy will basically draft, whatever the aggressive deck is, probably in red, probably in potentially green. This guy will basically take blue cards over everything. Um, Remington will do whatever the Durley deck is, and I like explain to him what kind of happens at our table. And the guys are like, that's not true. That's not true. I'm like, oh, yeah? What are you playing? And every single one of them basically was like the exact archetype that I said that they play.
Yep. That's perfect.
So, I mean, it is important to break out of that box sometimes. And they're like, well, what do you always get? I'm like, well, I try to build a deck, and I kind of randomly switch decks from time to time based off of either what I open or what I'd like to try to force. But I more often than not kind of end up in these complicated decks that come together at the end. And they're like, yeah, that's fair. That's you. So you need to be aware of what's going on. Like maybe this next week, I just need to draft. Like a couple of weeks ago, out of nowhere, I decided, you know what, I'm going to be the aggressive red-white deck in Almond Cat and just see how good it is. And it was open at my seat, so I drafted it, and I crushed that draft.
Right.
And the sheer fact that they were not expecting me to play that kind of deck probably helped a lot. They sat down against me and went, oh, good. I can keep these kind of soft hands because he's going to have these dirty decks and like play a 1/5 on turn 2 and just sit behind it for 6 turns. And then he'll try to kill me out of nowhere. I got time. And I'm just like, 1 drop, 2 drop, 2 drop, 2 drop, And they're like, oh.
I guess I'd die instead.
Exactly.
Well, see, and whenever I draft, people have started to notice that I don't pick things. Like I don't sit in a certain groove. I just kind of just grab stuff. And
Sure.
that's why certain people at our local shop don't like drafting with me.
Well,
Cuz it's harder to read.
Well, see, so I think we have some guys who feel like they're hard to read, or some guys that they come in occasionally, they mess up the signals, and then they feel like, oh man, I didn't understand what was going on at the draft, and then sometimes they get upset or not or whatever. But again, having that knowledge of what your people are going to play gives you some extra leeway on figuring out what their signals are. But at the same
Right.
time, every single one of them thinks that they take the best card out of the pack. They don't realize that it's their biases that to the decks that they prefer, that is how they evaluate the card. Right? They'll be like, oh, well, I just opened this bonkers blue card, so I ended up in blue. I'm like, but you passed X card, right? They're like, well, yeah, it's not as good as this card. It's because you think it's not as good. You know, like Brawl's expertise is amazing, but it may not be as good as Reality Smasher, for example. Just two cards I'm thinking of, not even in the same set.
Right.
But
Chaos Draft.
Just because you prefer this kind of card doesn't mean it's necessary. There's the 3/2 that with haste, right? That says when it attacks, you can exert it, and the card creature doesn't block. That card is one of the best cards in Almond Cat. Pick one, pack one.
Yes.
Right. So a lot of people are like, "Well, this so rare is better than this card." It's like, no, because you prefer that color, you don't realize how good this card is.
Right.
Right. So you have to be aware of those kind of things, and that's why I could comfortably say, yeah, they're going to be in this deck, or they're going to be in that deck, or whatever. It's because they're personal preferences. So try to break out of that, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Especially if you put someone in a rut for a long time, and try to get out of it. Speaking of ruts and a flashback, I guess an old friend has returned to Standard, at least according to Goldfish, which I don't know is back up or not yet, but I noticed this article today. And apparently Blue-Green Crush is back, baby. Yes. I was a big fan of the Crush deck when it first came around.
Right.
Now, this doesn't quite do the same thing as the previous Crush deck did. The previous Crush deck, for those of you who didn't know, was able to basically infinitely go off. You crushed a couple of times, or whatever you needed to do to get to 11 mana, and then you could crush every turn if you wanted to. You like played a morphed Din Protector, unmorphed it. Like you could play the morph, unmorph it, regrow a Crusher Tentacles, play Crusher Tentacles for surge cost, and get back from your graveyard and get a an 8/8. And basically you could do that every turn if you wanted to. This deck, obviously we're missing that kind of cheap creature-based regrowth, but we still have Green Warden of Marasa. So
yeah,
for 6
we still
mana,
have that.
You can regrow that guy. So I guess this deck now is 4 Druid of the Cow, 4 Naga Vitalists, which I'm not real sure why you're running Nautilus instead over other stuff, but whatever. 1 Green Warden, 4 Oblivion Sowers, which I think is great. I think Oblivion Sower is a card that needs to be played more before it rotates. 3 Ulamog as your big payoff cards. 4 Kiora, Master of the Depths. Yes. People forgot she was still in Standard. 2 Anticipate, 2 Censors, 2 Essence Scatters, and Negate. 2 Pulls from Tomorrow, 3 Crushed Tentacles, and some Oath of Nissa out the deck. I'm a big fan. Did you get to play the original Crush deck at all? Maybe
No. I played against it.
Did you like the deck? Did you think it was good?
Yeah. I didn't like playing against it, but I did.
Right. Like I don't know. I do like this style of deck, especially with like a Kiora to untap a land and a Vitalist. Like, make a bunch of mana. It seems good, especially with like Oblivion Sower accelerating you into Ulamog. I guess Ulamog's just the guy to go cast.
Okay, so what's Oblivion Sower again?
It is an 8/5 for 6. When you cast it, target opponent exiles the top 4 cards of his library. Then you may put any number of land cards that they own from exile onto the battlefield under your control.
Yeah, that's right.
So big fatty that probably is going to net you 2 mana, give or take 1 to 2 mana off the top of their deck. So again, big fan, big fan. If you like mana dork on 2, Kiora on 3, untap mana dork in a land, like you can keep up a Censor or an Essence Scatter or whatever.
Right.
And then on turn 4, you can Oblivion Sower. Real easy. You can jump to 8 mana on turn 4, right? Because Kiora untaps a land and a creature. So if you have a creature and 3 lands, that's 6 mana on turn 4.
Yeah.
If you have 2 mana dorks, then yeah, I don't know. You can get crazy real fast, I think. So again, I like this idea. I was a big fan of Crush of Tentacles, plus some sort of regrowth effect like a Green Warden. Seems good. So it's possible I'll put this guy back together. Looks like the sideboard runs Bounty of the Luxa.
Yes.
Which seems sweet.
Oh, you can play that on turn 3. And then
You could.
And then turn 4 you get you just draw a card.
The real question is, could you main deck a Nissa, the Steward of the Elements?
Yeah, dude, you're playing blue-green. Do it.
Well, the question is, could you
Nope.
get you... Well, hang on one
Just do it.
sec. Enough? You need 9 mana? How soon can you make 9 mana with a Mana Dude and a Kiora? And like an Oblivion Sword. Could you possibly cast Nissa, Steward of Elements, for 9 as early as like turn 4?
No.
You could play it for 8. Unless you Oblivion Sower on 4. The Oblivion Sower on 4 and accelerate 2 more lands, you could do it on 5.
Right.
That sucks. I don't know. It's just the idea of like Nissa-ing, alting, next turn crushing, putting Nissa back in your hand.
Yeah.
Like, I scry 2, and then I bounce Nissa back to my hand, and they're like, "Arr." Like, attack you for 8. They're like, we'll deal with that. And you're like, okay, here's 2 lands. Welcome back to Screwtown. Population, you. I don't know. I'm a big fan of that style of deck, I guess, is all I'm saying. And if Goldfish is putting it back out there, there's probably some play. Some play to it. Well, that's the show I have this week, Travis. Do you have any show? Anything else?
I think we talked about everything that we had.
Sweet. As always, you can check out samusgarobo.com for this and all past episodes of the show. You can also check out youtube.com/samusgarobo for this visual version of the podcast. So if you'd like to see Travis's sweet beard, which is even bushier than usual, or his poorly lighted room, or the fact that he always wears a wife beater.
It's what I do.
That's right. That's what he does. YouTube.com/SamusGarobo. You can also check this out on Twitch.tv/SamusGarobo or Twitter.com/SamusGarobo. Those are all the places you can get hold of me. Of course, if you'd like to get hold of Travis or be savagely trolled, you can look up TurtlePower319 over on Twitter. And of course, if you'd like to send us an email, we actually have a couple of things that we need to take care of when you come visit that have been sent to us by email. But that email, the number 2, trollsbrew@gmail.com. All right, Travis. Well, I don't have a game this week. You messaged me that you were working on show notes. Do you have a game?
No.
No. Well, in that case, let's have a discussion about something else instead. Entirely different.
Okay.
Heartbreak. Church. Without getting into spoilers, what did you think of the Logan movie? And the reason I bring it up is it just came out on digital download.
Yes. And I was thinking about buying it again. Well,
I did. I bought it.
Did you buy it?
Google.
Okay. I was gonna say if you bought it on like for a DVD, give me the digital code.
Maybe I'll make you a Google family member
Okay.
for
Uh,
the small visitation fee of
yeah.
your sweet mouth on my places.
Ask for X, I'm gonna give you a Y. Um,
That's a Facebook joke, everybody.
yep.
Sorry. You have to be following us on Facebook to see the reference to that one.
So I absolutely loved the Logan movie. I feel like if they would have done every other movie like that and like given Wolverine the ability to be who he is as a character, that they would have made way more money. And I don't think that the rest of the movies would have been better. I just think that he would have been even more popular than he already is.
So I have mixed feelings on this movie in particular. I mean, first of all, great film. If you haven't seen it, check it out. If you have seen it, I mean, clearly I bought it, which is one of the highest compliments. So like my tier of compliments is go see it in the theater more than once. That's the highest compliment. The next compliment is see it in the theater, buy it when it comes out. And then like the third compliment obviously is go see it at the theater. And of course, and buy it in general. So the highest compliment I can pay is seeing something multiple times. I did not do that with Logan. Right? I only saw it the one time, I think. No, I'm a liar. I saw it twice. I watched it once with the family, and then I went and watched it again with Dan because Dan was like, I'd like to see it. So I did. I take it back. I paid it its highest compliment. I watched it twice. Plus, I bought it as soon as it came out.
Right.
So clearly loved the film. Can't recommend it enough. I hated the ending.
So
I absolutely hated it.
without getting into spoilers, uh, one of my friends, he spoiled the movie for me, and he spoiled the ending. So I told him I was going to go to every midnight release comic book movie for the rest of the year and spoil every single one for him. So far, he has almost blocked me because of Guardians of the Galaxy. And I told him, this is your fault.
This is the punishment.
And he was like, dude, I work night crew. And I'm like, man, that really sucks because you ruined something for me. So now I am ruining everything for you.
So I'm sure eventually down the road
I'm not spiteful.
Yeah, you're not. I'm sure eventually down the road we'll discuss how I would rather Logan ended. I feel like it was very powerful and made me feel feelings I didn't want to feel, which I think is awesome, but still not the. I think they could have still done all that and then slightly modified the ending. I don't think anyone's overly surprised by the ending, but I feel like there's a lot more deepness to it that people didn't realize. So this film in particular was very heavily anti like Monsanto, and I feel like genetically modified plants. I don't know if everyone else caught that.
Yes.
Travis shaking his head emphatically. So without getting into too much like individual spoilers, because I feel like these were in the trailers and people should probably have figured this out by now. But Logan is set in a future where mutants are slowly dying out and there's not very many left. And in the course of the movie, we learn it has everything to do with the food and how they're using corn to basically cure mutantism, right? And so they have these giant mega farms, and there's like this whole subplot of mechanized farms trying to take over small time farmers and stuff like that, which is something that for people who know me for outside of the Magic Podcast, they know that I'm very adamant about growing my own food, as much of it as I can get away with, and taking care of myself and making sure that I eat well, which is weird because I'm such a fatty, right? But making sure that the things that I'm putting into my body are the best that I can afford and the highest quality, which isn't always cheap, either money wise or time wise, because I've got to go out and maintain a garden and blah blah blah. But I feel like it's worth it, and I think this movie was trying to tap into that really hardcore. Whether or not people got it, they're subconsciously, at least, they should think that when they're drinking a soda or whatever. Did you pick that up at all, or was it not as
Oh no,
obvious?
no, it was completely obvious to me that uh, the director and the writers were like, no, we just need to throw some shade on these people because it's not healthy for people to rely solely on big government for food.
Well, this isn't even necessarily big government. This is just on, in my opinion, it's not necessarily on big government or whatever, or companies, or however you like. This to me is relying on somebody else to supply your food.
Right.
And I think this boils down to a lot of issues for me personally that we kind of discussed at the beginning of the show and the pre-magic section of the show. A lot of things boil back down to personal responsibility and personal power, that my judgment is the best when it comes to me. So I think they're casting shade in such a way, as you were to put it, on somebody else to get your food for you, right? For example, in this case, to get your food for you, then you don't know as well as you might think that you do where that food's coming from.
Right.
Right. And you take responsibility for your own, some of your own food or some of your own whatever. Protection is one of the ones that we kind of discussed at the beginning of the show. Like, some of that's up to you. That's your responsibility. And if you don't, there are consequences. And in this world, the consequences were they used that to start killing off mutants. So basically what I'm telling you is, if you want to die a slow, painful death, you should continue to eat corn.
Sounds good. I'll keep listening to them too. Troll on, everybody.
Troll on, everybody.